All right, it looks like online we have Alice Evans, Andrew Carney, Christina Dewar, Alicia Buckholz, Jason Mitchell, Kevin Heisler, MPAT, Melissa Fisher, and Nicholas Zentis.
Zanettis, like
Lettuce.
Lettuce.
I was so
Rhymes with
close.
Just imagine you're saying lettuce with a. The internet.
In 206, we have Commissioners Vera Slotnick and Strohmeyer, John Hart, Chris Lounsbury, Annie Cathy, Dave Wall, Ann Hughes, Carrie Powers, and and Griffin Smith.
We're feeling kind of jovial. Really enjoying that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Moving on to the consent agenda, we got 4 items here. Anything need to be pulled out or discussed separately?
I would be happy just to move this consent agenda.
Any further discussion or public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
We're on to action items. Lounsbury.
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. Thanks. Good to see you all back here safely from your trip to BCC as opposed to me being remote as I was on Tuesday. So what you have before you today is our standard employment agreement with our new Chief Public Works Officer, who will be replacing Shane Stack, who's retiring at the end of June after 30 years of a little over 30 years of public service. Believe it or not, he started like when he was 12 at the Department of Transportation.
In college.
He did. He started when he was in college, so not quite 12. But we're fortunate to have him for a number of years, and now we're super excited to welcome Jason Mitchell. Jason actually worked for Missoula County many years ago in the 911 Center as their technology person. He has a background in public works projects, primarily in the water and wastewater at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and then in vertical construction. He was part of the crew and led part of the crew that helped to rehab the Palace Apartments several decades ago, and then worked for several companies. And so after our kind of extensive process of vetting candidates, we got down to Jason, and it's your selection for our new Chief Public Works Officer. He'll start on March 31st to start his onboarding process with us, and that includes some time that he'll spend not only with all the chief officers, kind of getting to know all of the departments and kind of layout of Missoula County, obviously time with Shane to get up to speed on all the projects that we have going on. As you know, there are many of them involving lots of federal funding. And so we're really excited to have him starting with us a little later this month.
It's great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's coming up, like 2 weeks.
It's only 2 weeks away, believe it or not. March will be over before you know it.
It's crazy.
Wow.
And thanks for all the work.
Yeah, thank you guys for being part of that process.
Thank you for
Jason, Jason is on if anybody has any questions for him, and we also have a press release going out, so we'll have that for folks.
Big job.
There's Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really excited to get started and glad I have some time to work with Shane. And yeah, I think that'll be great.
Excellent.
Jason Griffin's here from the Missoulian, who may or may not have a question for you, but I just want to make sure you've met each other.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of work needed to be done in public works. You're still onboarding, but like thoughts on, priorities for you in the department?
Yeah, I think as we, get started and work with Shane to see the most crucial topics, I think we can definitely correspond and determine a great path forward together. At the moment, I'm, coming in a little bit blind. So, but looking forward to definitely figuring it out in the short term.
And I'll add, Griffin, because that's a similar question to what came up during the interview too. We talked about, kind of the big funding challenges that come up at Public Works because, as Shane always puts it, just a singular bridge in Missoula County, which we have both the city and the county bridges, is more than the entire Public Works budget, generally speaking. And so just looking at those challenges, and how we prioritize those needs based off that. And as you know, we had a couple of different grants last year that did not go through for 7. So that's kind of some of the things we talked about during the interview process too. So
Sure thing.
yeah.
And there'll be huge shoes to fill with Shane's departure, but we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that this is a smooth transition, Jason.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Smooth as we
Bridges. Two
I'll
bridges.
take any and all help I can get.
Congratulations, Jason. I move that we approve the employment agreement.
Okay. Oh, John Hart.
No, go ahead and vote. Then I have an aside.
Oh, okay. Any further discussion or public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
My aside is, and I'm speaking to the choir, it looks like, but Shane's 30-year career, 30-plus year career in public service is a very good reminder to employees who want to do public service that one of the advantages of public service, in addition to it being a very rewarding and challenging way to make a living, is that you can retire in your early 50s and go on to greener pastures and sunnier skies. And you can't do that in a lot of fields in the private sector. So
Great reminder.
Another aside for Griffin, as everyone would say, Shane has done just an amazing job. My favorite quote on him is he put the public in public works. He's so good at dealing with the community, whether he's delivering good news or bad news. Everybody loves Shane, and it's because he knows how to interact with the public. Really has been behind a sea change in the culture of how we interact with the public. We're super grateful for that. Second thing on those bridges, 2 bridges equals all the amount of money that we would generate in tax revenue just to do 2 bridges. And that would mean not doing anything else, no public safety, nothing, just fixing those 2 bridges. That's how expensive these bridges are. It's true.
And do we know how many bridges need attention in Missoula County?
Many.
17.
how many bridges are there in Missoula County?
There's 17 of them are low.
Low limited.
This is a,
6.
we should know this.
I want to say it, but then get it wrong. So
There should be a book, The Bridges of Missoula County.
maybe a movie.
Maybe a movie.
We'll start with an epic poem that Slotnick will.
Do you know the number, John?
I don't know the
You're just
number.
throwing it out there.
Kevin, help us, put us out of our misery. How many bridges are?
That's not Kevin's purview.
Oh,
I
but
mean,
he's in the office.
That number is probably pretty close to the number of bridges that need some TLC.
Yeah, yeah. So many were built around the same time.
Okay.
474 bridges. and
Thank you.
culverts.
Okay.
Awesome.
Terry Powers
I
for
can-
Yes.
Some Missoula County boys.
I was just gonna let Jason know that I'll be sending you a Ready Sign document. It will come from Ready Sign, but it's actually from me to sign your employment agreement. So you'll see that after the meeting, about an hour probably after the meeting, Jason.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Dave Wall, we voted, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, first I'd like to just congratulate Jason. I'm really excited and I can't wait to meet you. So I'm the county auditor. You may not, we haven't met before, so you may know me. County auditor is actually an incredibly important, I'm a very, very,
I've heard during the interview, that's all they talked about was county auditor on board.
I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised at all the laughing when I said that. But at some point we will, I'd love to meet about the coordinated grant support team that Shane is a part of and all that stuff. And just looking forward to getting to know you. So congrats and welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
This is a great organization to work with. So I have a couple of policies that we are tweaking. The first one is the business meals, food, and other miscellaneous cost policy. This is sort of a catch-all policy for a lot, it's not travel and it's not purchasing. And basically it answers the questions that people have, like, can the county pay for this? Can the county pay for that? There's always those questions. So this policy answers quite a few of those. There are some pretty small changes. I know you don't have it in front of you, but the changes are slight enough that I think I can explain them to you. So the first change is at the very front, at the very top, under purpose, where we define employees. We included full-time, part-time, and temporary employees. We added that in there in addition to elected officials and members of boards and so forth. That was the amazing Sarah Bell that suggested that we add that. So I want to give a little, just a high five over that way. The second thing is under food and other miscellaneous costs, there was a section that allowed receptions to honor the departure of an elected official or the retirement of a long-term department head. And so we, at Matt's suggestion, county attorney, we changed that to any long-serving employee. So not just department head. We felt that was a little bit elitist, which at first I was in favor of. Fine.
Well, it depends. If they went to a really good school, then maybe.
Then maybe, yeah, exactly.
What's the definition of long serving?
We don't have that. That is going to be something we will trust department heads to determine. And then finally, the main reason we started working on this in the first place, with a lot of help, if I may say, from Ann Hughes, who, thank you so much for your help with this part. It was really important. We have decided that departments will recognize and show appreciation for its employees by providing parties, picnics, or other recognition events. The total amount expended for these events shall not exceed $30 per FTE per year. That is a new thing that we're doing. It came to light a few years ago when the former county attorney was having some trouble along those areas. And so we just thought it would be a good idea to add this as a reimbursable event or something that was a legitimate expense. Now, one thing it does not do is provide departments the budget to do that.
Yeah.
So either they will simply have to find room in their budgets, or they will have to come to you with a budget request if they don't have that. And that I'm going to remain mute on. But it is still going to be a legitimate county expense. So that is, those are the changes to that policy. Do you have any questions about that?
Thanks
So
for
great
getting through this.
Yeah, good for the clarity.
Should we vote on each one individually, or do you want me to just go on to the next policy?
Oh, maybe we should do them individually because this one,
Okay.
next one's kind of different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a cell phone policy.
Okay. Our motion?
I would move we approve this policy.
Second.
Any further discussion, public comment? All in favor? Aye.
I just add that it was really great to work with Dave on this, and I always really appreciate what an advocate he is for every individual in the organization, and that's the kind of organization that we want to be. So thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The next one is the cell phone policy, which we first enacted in 2017. It's another pretty slight difference, but I think it's really going to make a big difference for departments. The main difference in this is that it used to be that in order to get, so people can have county-owned cell phones and the county will just pay for those, or they can use their personal cell phones and receive a stipend that they are reimbursed when they pay their bill. They're reimbursed a bit for the county use of their personal cell phone. That before was agreed to in a written agreement between the employee and the department head, the stipend agreement that had to be attached to every claim, every reimbursement claim that came forward. And it was up to them, like how much they did. And all of that made sense, but it was also just a lot. It was a lot of paper, a lot of time, and really just a ginormous pain in the butt. So what we're doing is we're going to simply have a uniform stipend amount of $45. So as a claim is entered for reimbursement, the department head obviously still has to approve it. Once that's approved, there's no more paperwork to go with it.
Do it every month.
The reimbursement has to be at least every quarter. They still have to be reimbursed, but they no longer need to, first of all, decide on an amount. Secondly, have that reimbursement agreement or that stipend agreement that they did have to post every month.
So now they post the stipend agreement once a quarter.
There's no stipend agreement at all.
It just is.
Yeah, it just is. It's
$45 a month or
Yeah. Per month, which was pretty average.
Yeah.
It went anywhere from 30 to 50 a month. So I don't think for most people, we're not going to pay less. And for most people, we're not going to pay very much more either. There's not going to be a big difference there. But it's just going to be much more efficient.
Okay.
Just a lot more efficient. If a department head really wants to, they can pay less. We never tell people, no, you can't do that, but nobody's going to. Obviously. So yeah, it'll just be a uniform $45.
Thank you.
We approve the revised cell phone policy.
a question?
Yeah.
Would this apply to elected officials as well? Or just?
Yeah.
Second.
Any further discussion or public comment? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this cleanup work.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Does this make your life easier at all, Annie?
I don't have to do too many of them. I submit Chris's, but his is pretty straightforward. So, yeah. Yeah. It's a great idea.
Thanks.
Love it.
Correspondence.
Yeah, so you just have one letter. This is the letter that goes along with the health department's reaccreditation. For folks who may not remember, our health department is an accredited health department, which was a program that was started under Ellen Leahy when she was here to get them accredited. And so they're going through that reaccreditation process right now, and that requires a letter of support from the governing board, which the commissioners serve as in this case, since it is a combined city county department, but they are all county employees. So it's just a letter for that.
Glad we can do this. It's a great thing that they're getting accredited.
Reaccredited.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Not only a few in the state, I think.
Yes, yeah. So.
What are the others?
I didn't know.
Didn't know that.
I did want to, before we jump to legislation, Kevin was nice enough to drop into the chat. There are 61 bridges over 20 feet in length,
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
65 bridges under 20 feet in length, 352 small bridges and culverts, of which 5 are load posted.
Aha.
So
Thank you,
There's
Kevin.
all the exacting details from Kevin. So
Thanks,
I
Kevin.
actually have that in there instead of Chris's best guess of how many bridges are in there.
Two
just-
bridges we can afford.
And just to imagine this is happening in every county in the state and every state in the country, and what a huge expense this is to modernize our infrastructure.
For sure. Okay, so quick legislative update, just a few more bills to go through that might be of interest for folks as we come out of the transmittal break. Tomorrow they gavel back into session, and we'll be back at it for the remaining 41, I believe, days that they have left. 42, 41, somewhere
What's your
right there.
whiteboard say?
Yeah, I can't remember if it's 41 or 42, but right around 41 or 42 days left here for them. So just a couple of really quick ones. Senate Bill 420, which would limit local government fees for that we can charge related to parks. This is coming from Senator Boldman. Obviously has a larger impact on the city of Missoula, which has most of the parks that have organized children events and activities at them. The impact to the county, and the reason that we asked for an amendment on this bill is our contract with the Mavericks, which is a school-age sports team, even though it is a private piece and they have sole use of Big Sky Park. We did ask for an amendment to that to allow that contract to continue, because this would have capped the fees related to that, and we don't set any fees related to the Mavs. They control all of that.
Why,
stuff.
what's the impetus behind this?
The impetus behind it is because taxpayers are already paying to fund the parks, there was a feeling that it is unfair for them to then have, again, from this perspective, additional fees added on for then, kids' sports to be able to use those fields.
So is the user fee, what's the
So
fee?
it caps the amount that the city, for example, can charge to a user's group.
Oh,
If
for
it's
user
if it's a child
There are programming
based
costs outside.
sports. Correct. So, so for example, not to pick on any one particular sport, let's use baseball, even though there are not baseball fields that would necessarily fit in this. If it were a baseball, and let's say you were going to have a tournament, and you might have a $100 tournament fee that your kid has to pay to play in that. Some portion of that right now would go to, say, the city of Missoula or another community to cover the cost of using that field. And of course, that pays for the maintenance workers and all the folks to maintain that field. The idea was to try and reduce the amount that youth sports in particular would be paying in fees, because they can be.
Why not
Quite
just outright oppose this? Because this is, yet again, seems like an intrusion on local government by the state of Montana.
Yeah, we did debate internally opposing this, but because we don't actually have any youth programming, it really is kind of a little outside of our lane. It is very much geared at the city. The city did oppose it.
Oh, okay.
The only youth sport that we have a contract with where there's any fee from the county associated with it at all is the Mavs. And so that's why we asked for the Mavs to be exempted through at least the existing contract, because we have a longstanding agreement with them.
So there's quite a bit of Little League use, baseball use at Big Sky Park. Does that mean there are no fees for that?
We do not, as part of the agreement that we have with West Side Little League, I think, is the one that's a Big Sky, if I remember correctly, with West Side. They actually do the field maintenance as their in-kind contribution. So we are not really charging them like a direct fee that they then have to pass on to
Then
their
they-
users group.
But they take care, they do all
And
the
the
work.
exchange is right. They in essence maintain those fields on our behalf. And
Right.
so we don't have to then expend
Yeah.
property tax dollars to maintain those fields.
Got it.
So that's kind of the arrangement we have with almost all of our parks.
Similar thing with maps.
Yeah, exactly. The difference with the Mavs, of course, is that they actually have done some improvements, including buildings and those kinds of things. And so they do actually pay, it's not a huge amount of money, but they do actually have a financial contribution that goes to the maintenance of that whole park.
They have quite a facility. I wonder if this is not the right moment for it, but at some point to talk about the parking lot that's directly across from the Mavs parking lot and is used for overflow when
At the park.
they have games and there's tons of people at the games. So the Mavs have their stadium and then there's a parking lot immediately to the south.
Mhm.
And there's a little road that goes into the DNRC. And then on the other side of that road, there's a kind of informal overflow parking lot that sometimes gets quite filled up, and which is, I have no problems with this. It seems like a perfectly good place to park. That parking lot's also used by dog walkers, joggers, people who use the DNRC, and it's pretty beat up and muddy and rutted and rough shape. And we should at some point figure out who would be responsible for making that parking lot.
Who owns it?
livable. It's on our land.
Yeah, the county technically owns the land.
And the
Yeah.
parking lot would say is split between in terms of amount of use from overflow from Mavs games and then dog walkers, et cetera, which is much more continual, but the numbers are much smaller. 2 or 3 cars. When you look out there when there's a big Mavs game in the summer, there could be 50 cars out there. And good on them for bringing in a crowd.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we can definitely bring that up with Randy.
Yeah, at some point we should make that parking lot nicer.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Chris,
Yes,
may I ask a question about this bill, even though it's outside my lane?
absolutely. Well, I don't think it's outside your lane, but okay.
So I definitely understand the thought of, since taxpayers are funding this through their taxes, we should limit the fees, so is this bill in any way attached to funding through, in other words, if taxpayer funding goes down, can the fees go up?
Do not remember seeing anything like that in the bill.
I just think of the national
amount.
parks,
Yeah.
national parks used to be heavily funded by the federal government, and now it costs an arm and a leg to get in, but it has to because it's not as well funded.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything like that in the bill.
The other day.
I think I understand the idea behind this, but with youth sports, there's a whole bunch of programming that goes way beyond maintenance costs, like the maintenance that West Side Little League does, or the maintenance that the city and the county jointly pay for out at Fort Missoula. That those costs are not covered by property taxes, and it's those programs that, not just the space itself, but the programs that are such great benefit to kids.
Yeah, and I mean, not my job to speculate on how this might be approached by the city, so let me start with that.
Sure.
But it could, for example, this is only related to children use, and they get a lot of adult use as well. So there could be a cost shift that potentially happens related to, right, the fees that may then be charged to adults to help offset.
The old burden shift.
So not my job to speculate on whether the city would contemplate that or not, but that is one way that potentially that could be addressed for it. A couple of other really quick bills. Senate Bill 376 was the Establish a Right to Work Act, which is not quite right to work in the national sense of that, but was really geared towards public sector unions and trying to, for lack of a better term, trying to create some hurdles to make it more difficult for folks to collectively bargain in the public sector. That was a bill that we opposed. It was heavily opposed and did not make it through transmittal. Was heavily opposed by pretty much everyone. There were four supporters, if I recall correctly, none of whom represented unions or public employers.
Did this
national.
come out in 23?
Yeah, this type of bill has been coming up at least the last
This
3
is-
legislative sessions.
This anti-union stuff is evergreen.
So,
Even though it's so soundly, okay.
yes.
They'll
Gotcha.
just forever try. And good on them for their optics and language. Man, they're so good at this stuff. Right to work. Like, who could be against right to work?
Last one, just to touch on really quickly, the you may recall that there was a bill at the beginning of the session that I was personally very interested in, and I always say it wrong, the Chancery Court.
Oh,
Oh,
I always say it wrong. I always want to stick an L in there and make it a
Yeah.
Chancellery Court.
Yeah.
It's Chancery Court.
Constitution and business.
Constitution and business. That has been reformatted to now be Constitution and asbestos claims.
Wow.
Senate Bill 385, which they're now calling the General Claims Court. We are continuing to kind of watch that bill. Right now, it does not have a direct cost associated with local governments, but we do still have some technical concerns because, for example, district court here, how do we pull a jury pool when this division in the state is basically like, Butte West, right? Like how do you contemplate doing that and getting jurors and all of those things? So we do have some technical concerns around how this play out and how Missoula County would kind of then have to be used. It does contemplate in this that the counties, I don't want to say would be required to provide space, but they would be able to use courtrooms that were not in use, which sounds a little like we would have to provide them a courtroom, which is not.
wait, say that again. How was it?
They would be able to use courtrooms that were not otherwise in use for a scheduled.
So the
case.
Chancery Court would work on the weekends.
Maybe.
Sunday.
Yeah, as it
Night
says,
court.
so-
Night court.
Night
Night court.
Yeah, so I mean, it does create some potential logistical challenges.
The governor appoints the judges.
These, as it is currently drafted, these would be gubernatorial appointments as opposed to elected.
And constitutional and asbestos issues.
Yeah, constitutional and asbestos. So
Freedom.
Just those two.
Often.
generally speaking, yeah, those are the two big ones that are in there. I
As
think
is
they might have tossed.
As
in
is
one.
commonly linked, freedom of speech and insulation.
Yeah.
They go well together.
So we'll continue to watch that one and provide our concerns around that. I anticipate that one, just based on its political, it has backing from both the governor and the Republicans. I anticipate it'll probably continue to move forward during this period. Last one was a pretty easy one. House Bill 722 requires the retention of electronic communication, aka email, for a certain period of time for all public employees. You may recall that we adopted what's known as a capstone policy for our email. And so we say that for elected officials and for department heads and those kinds of positions, we retain those electronic communications forever. So for not only the period of time that the person's in office or here, but also then for as long as we're possibly able to. And then based on the level of employee, we kind of step down to the minimum that's required under state law. This basically almost sets up that exact same thing where it says for elected officials or high level employees, you have to retain those for longer than the state retention period, which I think is a couple of years. You're supposed to retain those kind of in perpetuity. And so we're already meeting that, but that we are continuing to watch that bill just to make sure it doesn't get modified in some way since it's passed between houses and now will be heard in the Senate. So
What's that?
that one is number HB 722. Yeah. And those are kind of the last few that we'll update you for until the legislature's back in session. Starting on Tuesday, though, our list will get more exciting as we dynamically go through those and move towards.
So during this transmittal time, were you guys and the rest of the legislative team able to take a breath? Or do you feel like there was so much stuff you just kept on?
We didn't force everybody to meet at 7:30 in the morning.
For last Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week. So for 4 days, that's.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, the pace that you guys have been attending to this is pretty impressive.
Thanks. We have an amazing team.
You're really fortunate to have a,
Oh.
when we're done with legislative, I do have one thing that's not on the agenda, just as a discussion item, as a reminder for something you have on your public meeting today, but I don't want you guys had more questions on the legislature. Because these only come up once a year, I just wanted to let you guys know this afternoon during your Thursday public meeting, you will have the budget amendments that we do at the end of every fiscal year as we're getting ready for audit season to make sure that we reconcile. And so these are just the big moves between categories to make sure that all of our numbers are complete for audit. So you'll see those today. Michelle will be presenting those to you, and she'll be presenting kind of the mid-year ones because we're about mid-year in the fiscal year 2025 budget, she'll be presenting those ones for adjustments for things that have happened. So that could be things like we got a grant, and so we have to account for that in our accounting and have the spending authority so we can actually do the things that came in under the grant and those kinds of things. So we break those out into the big categories: personnel, operations, capital for you, but she'll have each of those 4 resolutions. I think it's 4 today. So 2 for 2024 and 2 for 2025 for you guys today. And she'll have a recommended motion and everything, just a really quick thing, but we only do it about once a year. So I just wanted you guys to be aware that you'll have that this afternoon, usually pretty quick items. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, events, invitations?
I think so.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Have a great Thursday.
Happy Thursday.